and mute, and we'll get going. This is another one of the Fireside chats. I'm pleased we're doing this one today with the Q&A. I'm sure there'll be a few questions for Chris. Chris, well, I think you've just gone past your 5 years birthday, haven't you, with SR2? Well, congratulations for that as well.
Thank you.
Before we kick off, it'd be good to have a couple of minutes, I think, with what's happening now on your experience in recruitment and what the drivers and motivations were to set up SR2. So give us a bit of background.
Cool. So yeah, I guess SR2's business is 5 years old. So it was 23rd of October. Prior to that, I'm now, I think, 16, 17 years in IT recruitment. So I did 9 months, 10 months with S3, very first role. Then I did 6 years with purely tech recruitment is all I've ever done. So I did 6 years with a company called Opus Recruitment, which was kind of one of the fastest growing UK tech agencies. So I was kind of day one of 4 that started that, did 6 years with them, including a London move that scaled from 4 of us to about 120 when I left. They're now 350, exited about 18 months ago to private equity, global business. They're very fast paced. I then thought about setting my own thing up then when I left, and circumstances maybe went south, albeit I was very close to doing it, and circumstances dictated that it wasn't the right time. So I then went and joined Randstad and so I had kind of fast-paced startup with Opus versus the huge corporate beast that was Randstad. So I did 3.5 years with them, 2.5 very good. Last 12 months, change of MD and reporting line for myself, which maybe clashed. And then I was kind of like 35 at the time, thinking now's probably the time if I'm ever going to do it. Let's revisit and bite the bullet. And that's kind of, I guess, what gave me the kick to start SR2 to what I did.
And when you set up, what was the plan? Was it, I remember when I started my first business, the long-term plan was to have fun and make money and be in business tomorrow. But you probably had a little bit more forethought than that.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to, it's not kind of lifestyle business. I've always worked in, and I kind of get motivated by scale and growth. That's kind of what gets me excited in reality. So I'd seen it, rapid in the Opus times. Equally, I think as we started to hit that those kind of 100+ numbers, culturally, the business started to change and things started to evolve in a way that didn't necessarily fit with my ethos, should we say. And then even Randstad, although it was a huge corporate, massive company, the actual tech remit I had in tech, I was effectively inheriting a London and Bristol tech operation, which was the total UK tech operation for Randstad. And we had a London office that was at the time doing quite well, and a Bristol office which was failing. And the whole ethos was kind of, it's broken, it needs fixing, we'll give you carte blanche to reinvent it and lead it as you want to lead it. But the kind of main driver, what they're trying to achieve was growth. So as I said, the first 2.5 years there, I inherited a business of like 10 people, took it down to 4 quite quickly, and then rebuilt from 4 up to 37 in the first 2.5 years before, as I said, there's a bit of a change of direction with the management. So I've always been around scaling, and as I said, that's, I guess, what I like doing, what excites me. So the plan with SR2 was always to build something that could scale quite quickly. So even in the early days, I hadn't been hands on the tools for about 5 years in those previous positions, if not longer. So even in the short term, when we started SR2, there was just 4 of us. It was very much kind of get back on the phones and try and get the wheels turning. But even then, the mindset was to come off that as quickly as possible and focus on building a business that we can actually scale and grow effectively.
And just for those people who are in the different sectors, just how would you describe your market sector for SR2? Is it IT, or is it focused?
No, so it's pure IT. So anything what you describe in IT is kind of the development life cycle. So it's kind of your web developers, your infrastructure people, that type of stuff.
So when you set up, apart from that scale and growing something with some numbers, well, what was the purpose and mission? And I guess I'm going to question you on B-Corp in a minute as well. So what was the essence of what you wanted to do with the business from the kickoff?
So I guess it was ultimately do something different. So I think both those experiences I had with Opus and particularly with Randstad, there was a feeling where things got disjointed, driven, I would argue, by kind of almost like greed in reality, in different ways in both companies. And I've always, I guess, outside of work, I've always kind of been involved and done volunteering and had kind of charity connections. And I was literally reading a book on holiday at that point with Randstad, where I was starting to think I just need to do it. I wasn't enjoying my work in life. I was probably in a bit of a dark space in terms of my mental health with what was going on in work, and read a book on holiday called People Over Profit. And that fundamentally, I guess, inspired the mindset and the objective of the business. So it's just reading that book, which is by a guy called Dale Partridge, owns a business or charity non-for-profit called Sevenly, US based, and they create hoodies, t-shirts, apparel, change the branding to the charity that they're supporting and flip it every 7 days, and then $7 per sale of the t-shirts, etc., goes back to that charity. And it's all about his business journey, the various cycles of a business within what he did with Sevenly effectively. So it's kind of reading that book and inspired by that book, and it was just a case of how can I translate what that is into an IT recruitment company. And then the kind of idea started to come to life whilst I was on holiday. And then it was 14 months from reading that book on holiday to go live with SR2 effectively. So the brand SR2 stands for socially responsible recruitment. So it kind of runs right the way through everything that we do, all of our touch points, to make sure we're on brand in terms of how we position ourselves and what we do and how we go about it.
And when you kicked off, did you have B-Corp in mind, or was that something that evolved?
Yeah, it was always in mind. I had a 3-month notice period in terms of my gardening leave, and I took kind of a look into it at that time, and I didn't appreciate from my naivety that you could become pending B-Corp, which I didn't pick up on at the time. So I took one look at it, had a million other things to look at, and it's a big old process to become B-Corp certified. So it was always on the agenda. It was just a case of finding the right time to do it. So at the time I looked at it and thought that's going to be way too much with everything else. I've got to get set up, ready for kind of go live. And then when COVID come and we were on lockdown, that kind of, I guess, provided me a bit more or a bit less distractions working from home, to be able to just get my head down and start the process. So we started it in there. It took us 18 months from start to finish before we were certified. And that was literally through COVID time. So it was August 21 we got our certification finally resolved, but we didn't start until February 2020.
Okay, cool. And I'm going to talk about I think one of the positive things about your story is the scale of growth. And I think we were talking in 21, and I think the team was something like mid-20s, wasn't it then? And then 2022 was somebody put the accelerator down. Did you open London then, and it's scaled by the end of the year to 60 something, didn't it? Yeah.
Yes, we're 68 now, and it's there or thereabouts, pretty much doubled every year. So we only opened London the beginning, like January 2022, this time last year. So we've got 20. So we've gone from nothing to 22 in London Bridge in the last 13 months, and then say 68 across the whole business. So predominantly Bristol's our HQ where we started, where I'm largely based. So we're 45 in Bristol, and then Austin. We've now got our first boots on the ground US employee out there, and we've got 2 people going through the visa situation to relocate their life out there and do that. So 68 across the whole business, largely Bristol, London, and then 3 in Austin. And
one of the things, we had a discussion earlier about how the growth of that business, you've been able to attract some experienced people, not just juniors as well, which is a lovely, if you've got big scaling mix, how do you educate the youngsters if it's full of youngsters? You've obviously spent quite a lot of time on your employee value proposition. So has that been the key to success of attracting experienced talent to come and join as well as the youngsters?
Yeah, I think so. So we didn't take any trainees on by design kind of from the outset. So our blend at the moment is probably about 85% of our hiring is experienced. Kind of the sweet spot for us is what we'd just say second jobbers, and that first job could be as little as 8 weeks, probably in the shortest example. So kind of gone in, first job, hated whatever culture, environment, manager, or all of the above, and then we've picked them up as that second jobbers. But equally, it could be 4 or 5 years in that first company, and then we've taken them. So that was, I guess, initially by design, from the basis that we haven't had L&D, but kind of lots of other things that we need to focus on, and didn't necessarily have the time to be able to support and train new starters from the ground up. It's changed over the last probably 12 months, where either the growth ambitions kind of outstripped the supply from an experience recruitment point of view, and then we've started to hire our first head of L&D. We've got really good L&D, ironically, from a previous company, Opus, that's been with us now for about 9 or 10 months, which has enabled us to kind of supplement our experience hires with our own trainee academies as well, which is going quite well. But yeah, that's by design. I think fundamentally, strip it right back in terms of how do you hire experienced recruiters, is just kind of thinking logically, like why, I asked yourself the question as we've done, like why would an experienced recruiter want to join your business? And if you can't answer the questions, then that's kind of, there's your answer in reality. So it's kind of like, for me, it's about creating an environment that I would have wanted to work to myself. That's the starting point. Create a business that I would want to work in myself. I was not the world's greatest recruiter, but I was okay, should we say. So it's just about kind of, with my own mindset, trying to create a business that I would have wanted to join as a recruiter. So that's working alongside other good people, that's having a good competitive commission structure, having good tools, having a good working environment, and having that autonomy, and not having that micromanagement KPI type environment. That fundamentally good people that are self-sufficient and ambitious are not going to want to work in that environment. So it's just almost like reverse engineering the type of company that you'd want to join yourself. Is the key question to answer, and I think we've done a good job with that. And I think the brand again attracts people that have a similar mindset in terms of what we do as a business and how we operate and the type of business we go after and how we do it. I think just again attracts other people of the similar mindset, which means our retention's also been really good as well, which is obviously a key to growth.
With some of your experienced people, did you take recruiters from other sectors, or was it mainly tech as well?
We've done both, and we've done both successfully. I think that obviously the priority with tech, if we can get it, but it's not that hard. So I'd much rather focus on the kind of the person and the mindset and the character than I would pick that over whatever discipline they come from in the background. So we've had people come from all sorts of construction. It's been quite an interesting one. We've had people doing doctors, nurses, recruitment now runs our European team for us. So and even people that have cross-trained into different sectors that now hold management positions in the business. So I've seen all sorts work, but the preference would be tech. But equally, again, you're not going to build your business based on just relying on that, because your talent pools are so reduced.
Yeah. When you opened in London, which is quite a bit of a milestone, what were the challenges there? Was it finding the right members of your team to go and kick it off, or was there any to come over?
Yeah, London was an interesting one, because the brand in Bristol, so we've only, in terms of the growth, I've only hired an internal recruiter who's been with us now for about 10, maybe not even 10 months, 9 or 10 months. So we've had no internal talent function at all, as well as no internal L&D function. So all of it was literally 85% of our hiring is still done directly, as opposed to rec to recs spend. So I think Bristol's a much smaller market naturally, obviously, than London, and our brand carries well. People know, like in my head, it's like if you're a good technology recruiter in Bristol that's got the finger on the pulse in terms of social media marketing, etc., and branding, you're gonna know about us. And therefore, again, if you're a good proactive recruiter, you're probably likely to register some interest in working for us if you wanted to. And that inflow of direct people has been really good. Whereas London, very different beast, unknown entity. It was a little bit kind of in the dark in terms of how SR2 as a brand would land, and would we get that same traffic of experienced recruiters, or would we have to reverse the model and maybe focus more on trainees and creating our own? So we initially signed up on a 12-person office. I had 2 people from Bristol that were going to move over to London to help build that out for us. And then very quickly we start to make some noise from I guess socials and marketing and LinkedIn point of view that we were open a London office and we're then looking to hire. And within 2 weeks, we didn't even step foot in the 12-person office, and I upgraded it to a 21-person office because I was confident with the traffic and the people that we were already speaking to and the interest there was that actually the brand is going to carry quite well and we'll still get the same talent attraction, and therefore I'll kind of take the plunge and back ourselves to fill a bigger office and not be looking for another one in 3 or 4 months' time because we filled the 12 basically.
That and the motivation to really go for some of these awards, which you've done well in very recently, just now, but also the Recruiter Awards, that obviously helps the brand within the marketplace and that'll help drive attraction in London.
100%. I mean, London's so competitive. Like anyone you're offering has got 5, 6, 10 different things on the plate and probably the same amount of offers and things like that. And it's a very different. We're quite structured in terms of I don't get involved in highest salary wins type conversation. So we literally had a guy, again, kind of probably a stereotypical hire for us, which was 6 months experience in a different tech company, very different environment to us, had training, done quite well, but just didn't see himself there long term in terms of the environment. We'd been interviewing him. He accepted yesterday off the back. He had 4 offers and accepted ours yesterday, which is actually the lowest offer of the 4, just off the back of the award. So it does make a difference. And again, it's just getting the brand out there in terms of getting recognition, getting on people's radar. And then I'm confident in terms of who we are, what we offer. If people do then start to look into us and do their due diligence, then I think stack up quite nicely, and therefore we should be in a good spot to try and hire.
And some technical stuff here, because you're a tech recruiter. What have you got in your tech stack that really helps manage, grow, operate the business?
We've all, until the last 6 months, it's been pretty basic. So we've always been just the kind of stereotypical bullhorn, Broadbean, LinkedIn Recruiter, and those really for the first 4 years were the main tools. And it's only recently we've upgraded to Cloud Call, which went live literally the start of this year. We've just had a new rewrite of our website with new source flow for that. So that only went live a couple of months ago. We've now got Cube19 Bullhorn Analytics has gone live. We use Zoom Info for the US guys. We're looking quite positively with is it Selligence, I think you call it, is how you describe it, which is a really good mapping new business tool to really map out new markets and new territories, particularly focused on the US and European stuff that we do. But it's pretty basic. We don't use literally anything else other than that. It's just kind of no weird and wonderful secrets, unfortunately.
And I guess if you got Cube19, it was good that it's a lot cheaper now that Bullhorn acquired it, isn't it? And you've got it bolted on there. I remember us talking about the price of that at Rex a couple of years ago. And who's helped you on your journey? I know you've had a couple of third-party support with sort of coaching and training and stuff. Who are your third-party heroes that you've worked with?
So I've got a non-exec director that I use, a guy called Mark Cohen. It's been really helpful. So he's exited a business called Consoles, another tech business. He's based out in LA. So I've been working with him for about 18 months now. I guess really strategically helping us with that move into the US market. That was the key driver. Before that, I wasn't using a non-exec. We've utilized third parties from a training and L&D point of view. We're kind of, we are still, to be fair. So we've used Mike Watman from a leadership training point of view. Has been really helpful and does some really good stuff and continues to. We've got another enrollment on our kind of step up to leadership starting in February. So we continue to use him. That's about it. I'm fairly, active in terms of speaking to other business owners and leaders within other kind of brands that I respect. So I kind of certainly speak to other arguably competitors, but I think a pretty open book in terms of sharing what's working, what isn't working, and what challenges we're having like that. So I've got lots of connections within certainly the tech market in Bristol and equally London, I quite often will speak to other whatever owners or CEOs or leaders within different businesses.
Yeah, good. And what's your longer term vision now? You've obviously got your footprint in Texas, and that will be exciting certainly for the next couple of years. But what is the vision for SR2 if you look further down the road?
I tend not to look beyond like a year. So I mean, I'm clear in terms of where I see the next probably couple of years. So the growth is to continue to grow, and that's sort of dictated to how the market is this year. But I guess our headcount growth target by the end of this year is to get to 90. GP wise, the aim of the game is 11 million. We did 8.3 last year. So that's kind of, I guess, cooler growth from what we've done the previous year. So I'm kind of fairly confident we'll hit that regardless of the market. And most of that growth is going to be coming in the US. Yeah. Obviously, we're getting boots on ground. I want to get that to 10 by the end of this year. And then London, say we're at 22, I'd like to get that to about 35. But again, that will be dictated to by how the office performs and the type of people that we manage to identify. Bristol will probably be a little more stable in terms of the growth there. But yeah, I see no reason why we can't get to 90, if not 100 by the end of this year. Beyond that, I don't necessarily see it getting to a business where we're 200, 300 people. Not necessarily, that doesn't excite me that much, but who knows?
With obviously your retention's been pretty successful. Otherwise, you wouldn't have so many, and they wouldn't have. Have you, when people join, do they have a career development plan with you, or you're the managers, so that they see this is a career move, not a job move? You know, what have you got in place?
Yeah, so I think we're like very transparent with everything. So I think from the outset, right the way through on a monthly basis, I'm sharing with the business in terms of where we're at as a business, what the actual goals are in terms of where we're trying to get to, because we've naturally had a lot of growth. I think if you're not over communicating what the plans are, and all of a sudden people are seeing new faces coming in all the time, it can be quite disruptive. So I think we're very clear in terms of where we're trying to get to, what the end goal is, from an annual basis, which is where we target people. And I think then we'll almost like reverse engineer what part people need to play in order to get us to reach those. So when we're right back to the hiring point of view, we want to hire experienced recruiters, but I'm looking for ambitious, hungry recruiters with a bit of fire in their belly that want to go on that ambitious journey with us. Because if you don't, and there's a disconnect between, you want someone that wants to sit in just a nice, stable, comfortable, solid environment that isn't growing, then at some point it's going to be a disconnect. So we're very clear with people in terms of actually what is the journey we're going on, and what part can they play on that, and what part do they need to play on that in order for you to achieve those goals. So we want people that want to go into leadership positions. We want people that want to improve their billings from 2 to 3 to 400k, and it's our job to support them with that and how they do that, and then equally to fit those ambitions into our picture of where we're trying to take the business.
Good stuff. And before we move on to Q&A, what's your biggest challenge this year for 23, and your thoughts on 23 given the UK market?
January's not started great, to be fair. So an immediate challenge is a better February. I think I'm not that concerned about the market. I think in truth, like we're not overly reliant on one or two customers as a business. We've got real spread and depth of businesses across different industries and areas. So I feel fairly confident from that point of view. I think my own personal challenge, what we've certainly had challenged over the last 6 months, has been operationally making sure from a non-sales point of view, our business is robust enough to kind of cope with the growth. I don't think we necessarily have kind of grown the top end, headcount, GP, etc., and maybe not grown the kind of back end at the same rate, which perhaps an element of naivety or maybe a little bit more reactive than proactive on that front, whereas I'm very proactive from a sales hiring point of view, but haven't been maybe matching that up with an ops point of view. So I think it's certainly been an area where we've looked at operationally, things start to maybe fall down or cracks start to appear, and you just fundamentally realize you're not set up in the right way from a strategical back office point of view. So that's certainly been a challenge, and hopefully we're starting to come out the other side of that, but that certainly has been. And I think actually from a sales point of view, most of our communication and drivers and challenges are just going to be around making sure we're shifting that mindset from what the last 18 months has been, and what was needed to be successful the last 18 months is going to be very different to what's needed in the next 18 months. And it's shifting that mindset and those behaviors and that kind of proactive front foot recruitment. Perhaps the older people, and probably everyone on this call, to be fair, will know what it used to be like, as opposed to the golden ages of the last 2 years, are going to be very different to what's required in the following 2 years. So I think most of our management and the leadership conversation is just around, let's just almost like back to basics, proactive, front foot, let's make things happen, and just going a bit old school with it, as ultimately it's what's going to be required to be coming out the other side.
You've just prompted another question from me. And you've got lovely offices there, and I guess you've invested well in London. You said before you moved in, you upped it to 20 plus people. How have you worked? Have you got a policy for flexible working, or do you want people in the office? What's your culture there?
We're totally flexible. I think typically people probably do some combination of two in or three in, and the rest from home. But we've got people that do 5 days a week from home that we'll already see. Vice versa, we've got people that do 5 days a week in the office and don't like being from home. So we're totally flexible people.
Okay, cool, great. Well, I think that's been great, and there's a stack of questions that have come in, which we can run through now. I'm just going to invite everyone, if you want to click, because to gallery view, and you can unlock your videos and your mutes, and we could run through some of those questions if that saves time. Paul Swanick said initially, how did you attract clients? But I guess that was just knowing and being there and having an offering. But if you want to change that, then
nothing groundbreaking there. It's just like we're always candidate led with everything we do. So everyone, in terms of our setup, is contract or perm. Everyone has a tight niche, what we would call a vertical market. So you've got a specific specialism within those areas. You should know, if you're doing the right things within those areas, who the best candidates are in your candidate pools, and then you can at least take those to market with a confident approach, knowing you're going to back up with the product what you say effectively. But it's just a candidate-led approach with everything that we do, and then the candidates will almost do the lifting for you, and then we've got a good brand behind it in terms of the why that will back up that.
And I knew Robin would be asking this question, because I know he wants to grow his team and develop those. So he said, are you using a rec to rec, or do you have a strong company campaign? I think you might have answered some of that, but he's gone into a bit more detail and said, what salary and packages are you paying recruiters? And it might not be for this call. Do you need to offer over the market rate to attract, or is it just about the EVP? And you sort of gave an answer about that guy that's just accepted your offer. I think he accepted the lowest offer, didn't he?
Yes, we've used, I said, about 15% of our hiring is done via rec to rec. There's probably 2 or 3 that I think from trial and error we've got reasonable relationships with, that have been both Bristol and London in terms of the main focus of there. But they're hit and miss at best, I think, in reality. So we've got 2 or 3 that we've got decent relationships with. I'm happy to give a steer. And I don't think you should pay over market rates to attract people, because it's not a sustainable model. Because if you're pulling people into your business on the basis that you'll pay them more, then the minute someone else will pay them more, they're gone again. So we don't do that. I think we've got a very set structure. Again, it's that transparency across the business, so people know the person next to you doing the same job but the same amount of money isn't on significantly more money than you, because again, that's going to unpick itself with retention issues further down the line. So you've got to be comfortable, you've got to be competitive. Naturally, our model is more built around probably medium rate salaries, but really good commissions and benefits package, and kind of how we look after people. That's probably what our main sell would be. We don't pay the world's greatest commission. There are plenty of companies that will pay higher. We don't pay the world's greatest salaries. There will be companies out there that certainly pay more. But I think our overall offering in terms of our environment, our brand, and what you're going to see if you come and join us is significantly more than what it will be than maybe a few extra K on your salary. Effectively, I think you'd get it back in other ways.
Samantha and Tim were were obviously impressed by the scale and the speed of growth, and that they said, how did you manage the funding? How were you able to fund that growth?
It's all self-funded. So when I started the business, I took a bank loan of 80. I put 40 in myself and took a bank loan of 80. So that was a 3-year bank loan that I needed to pay back, which I cleared back in, but was it 15 months, I think, to be debt free, and then just reinvested basically. So I've never took huge money out of it myself. We've got a good cash flow, pretty cash rich business. We're 50-50 contract and perm in terms of our GP split. Yeah, it's all self-funded. I never took anything external and just reinvested basically.
Well done. Yeah, good stuff. Right, you guys, feel free, and girls, feel free to pose a question directly. I see we got another B-Corp man here, Patrick. That's
yeah. Well, look, I just want to say, I think congratulations. You've done an amazing job, Chris, as well in 5 years. And I think all of us, we kind of want the same thing. It's about improving the standards within our industry. It's about improving the perception of our industry, because what we do is actually really important. So I think you've done that really, really well. And, you know, keep up the good work and count us in. That's for sure.
Thank you, mate.
Good stuff. Richard, you mentioned to me you've been at some of these awards, battling away with SR2. Any comments from you?
Yeah, we were up for 3 more awards this week, and we were 0 for 3, and Chris was up for 1 and got it. so it's good. No, it's all good. I think we've got different. We're in obviously the same market, but in different locations primarily. Really interested to see you in Austin, actually, Chris, because there's a lot of tech recruiters who are all on that sort of bandwagon, but it's meant to be a great market. It's something I'm actually looking into myself. But we're just a bit behind, Chris. We're at 50, trying to hire 32 this year. We have slightly different challenges being headquartered in Derby, which is really, really hard to find people, which really sort of strangled our growth. So we've had to open other offices in Manchester and London to try and get the acceleration point, but then you've got to find the right leadership team in those locations, and when it's not you, creates a different dynamic. But no, I think you've done such a fantastic job and I think the purpose, and there's a lot of alignment in terms of what we believe as well. I was curious about the B-Corp thing. To be honest, I'd never even heard of it, about B-Corp, being completely honest. We've gone down an IIP, Investors in People route, which is also very, very challenging to get part of. But what was the logic there? I was listening to Mark Long's interview recently on one of his podcasts, and if you don't know Mark, guys, you know, he's a fantastic guy as well. He's the founder of Numi, and been in the industry a very long time. And they looked at B-Corp, and he was like, in the end, they decided commercially it didn't quite make sense. But what was the logic behind that, Chris?
I guess we're called socially responsible recruitment. Effectively, clearly, it's kind of in the brand. So I think I've always wanted to do it, and I think it's, for me, getting a B-Corp certification is almost like the ultimate stamp of approval that your business is a force for good. You're not just trying to line shareholders' pockets. You're actually giving something back to people, planet, purpose, etc. So I always wanted to do it. It's always on the agenda to do it, but equally, I think getting it, we haven't changed anything that we've been doing. It's just kind of been business as usual, and that's just almost like the stamp of approval to say, all right, yeah, well done, mate. We agree with what you're doing and how you're going about it, and we've not fundamentally changed anything. I think the reason people may look at it and it puts them off is because it is a robust process. It's not just give us 10 grand and we'll let you have the stamp of approval and away you go. Like, it took 18 months. You have to change your articles of association. You have to look at every touch point in your business. So it will put people off just purely on the basis that, I can't be asked to do that. And it almost like weed out those kind of disingenuous, I'm not saying the person your example is by any means disingenuous, but there's people that are a bit like, oh, let's get on the bandwagon. How do we do it? Can we do it? Or actually, no, that sounds like too much hard work. It'll naturally weed that out, which I think is really good. But fundamentally, it's the ultimate stamp of approval you can get that your business is doing something different and what you stand for is the right thing. So that's why we did it. But fundamentally, we were doing that from the outset anyway. So we've always, from day one, given 5% of our profits to charity. We've given nearly £250,000 away now in 5 years. So we've always been doing it. We're not changed anything that we're doing. We're not using it to try and leverage the B-Corp thing to try and win more customers. So fundamentally, we've always focused on companies with a purpose or with some sort of ethics beyond what they're doing, and vice versa. From day one, we've never worked with anything that isn't ethical. So gaming companies, gambling companies, anything that's maybe a bit grey or a bit murky, we won't work with them regardless of however many roles or whatever fees they're going to do. We just say no. So I think that's why it'll put people off, just because it is so robust and takes a lot of time and effort and work. And if you're in your business, it's easier because you're starting a lot of stuff from scratch. If you're a more established business, there's probably even more work because you're unpicking new processes that you've already got. You've got internal politics. If you're suddenly looking at a paternity policy and is it fair, is it right? And you've got whatever Jane or Joe that's actually just gone on it, and you're suddenly ripping it apart and changing it and making it more compelling and more fair. You've got other problems that you probably cans of worms that you're going to open up by going through the process. So yeah, I mean, it's the highest level you can do. It's just a lot of work to do it, but
no, respect for doing it, because it's I think what it demonstrates is actually if you believe something and you make it core to your business, then I think that's fantastic. I do have another question about Austin. I was with a guy yesterday who's got 108 and he's got 16 on the ground in Austin now. Why Austin? I asked him the same question. Why did he go to Austin? Why did you go to Austin when the US is a big place?
Yeah, so we looked at, so we kind of took Mark's advice in terms of non-exec, so kind of taking advice. So he's based in LA, and Console had Los Angeles office and the Boston office. The go-tos stereotypically obviously New York and LA. We don't necessarily want to follow the trend and do what everyone else does. I think it was probably the initial mindset, even though, as you said, Austin, everyone's on the bandwagon now. It's probably exactly what we are doing. Yeah, cost of living is really good. Cost of employment is really good there. Like our sweet spot tends to be startups, scale-ups, as opposed to huge corporate, well-established companies. So the tech scene within Austin, within that kind of remit and startup scale-ups is really good. It just felt like a good fit. We were looking, the only other one we were kind of, I guess, solidly looking at was Denver. But it was kind of Denver or Austin. We went out this time last year and did some exploring actually in the cities and made that decision. Austin kind of felt like a good fit. But said over the last 12 months, lots of companies are going to Austin, which yes, probably a sign.
Yeah. And by the way, the answer that he gave me was he wanted to go to the US, to New York, because that was his dream. And none of his team, he basically went to the team and went, he wants to go to the US. A couple of people put their hands up. And where do you want to go? They said Austin. That was basically it. Yeah. So that was the strategy behind it.
I think it was voted one of the best places to live in the US, as well as being a tech space. And but I also hear, and Simon's looking to go out there as well to Dallas. Dallas is the new Austin, people are saying. So we'll wait and see. I've got a question for Patrick. Anything? Because you went B-Corp fairly early on, didn't you, Patrick, with Dallas Knight? Was that similar drivers for you? Because I know you have that ethical,
It was exactly the same. Yeah, it was exactly the same. Honestly, it's just we're a group of guys that started at the big bad agencies and really wanted to start our own business that's really set with making a difference and doing things the right way. So it was always at the heart of what we did. Lockdown happened. The first conversation we had as business owners was, what can we do? And we'd use the time to have a look at improving our service offering, looking at our tech stack. But the values were the first thing. B-Corp, we got certified March 21. And essentially, we use it as our blueprint for everyone that works with us. These are our values. This is what we stand for. What you're doing here is not just filling jobs and making money. We're making positive impacts as we go as well. So let's measure that. And actually got like real pride in what we were doing and how we were working. And it's definitely helped with retention and attracting people. But then from there, it's kind of led us to other accreditations, and the sustainability is a real big one. And I think as business owners, we've got responsibility to make sure we're looking at things we can do to protect the planet and how we work and things as well. So we've introduced that, and we've got sustainability manager now within the business. So all of these things are really important. It's just making sure, as Chris said, actually, that we're working with like-minded businesses that kind of share those values. And it's just making sure we have those conversations. You don't want to work with those businesses saying that, all right, I understand B-Corp, you're banging the drum about that, I get it, but just fill our jobs quickly. To us, it's actually really important that there is that partnership and there's the connection around the values and making a difference. And let's measure the impacts as well as the income and what else we're doing as well. So really similar.
Good stuff. I got a really good question from Jamie, and one I should have asked. Have you offered share options to your leadership team to tie them in? What sort of incentives, if you can share that information?
Yeah, so there's 3 key people that were effectively with me from the get-go. Exactly that.
Good stuff. Good. Any other questions, folks?
Yeah, I've got one. Are all of your guys and girls 360, or do you have a specific team that's doing BD?
Large, yeah, we're about 85, 90% 360. We've got 5 delivery people across 55, 57 salespeople.
Wow.
So it's largely 360 model. We were, if you'd have gone back kind of 12 months ago, it was probably a direction we were starting to shift to more. And then I guess made the conscious decision just in terms of foresight of what maybe happened with the market, and that perhaps the way the market was not going to be as sustainable as some thought it might. We've kind of, I guess, arguably like pulled away and started to transition those people that were in delivery into 360. So we started initially when we were doing the trainees, the plan was to start them in delivery and then move them into 360. And then kind of what we were finding was it was then difficult to do that transition after they'd spent maybe 6 months doing delivery, and then it's like, oh, actually you've not thought about this aspect of the job, and you're introducing stuff after they've already been trained. So we're kind of untraining to retrain. So that was one driver. So we then moved away and we're just training 360 everyone. And then we had some people that were in delivery that actually started to see either the money or the interest and success from a 360 point of view. So we had a combination of unpicking the way we trained people from 360 from the outset. We had some people that were in delivery that wanted to transition over and have done really well into 360. And then we just stopped hiring delivery as well. So those numbers have been dwindling, but that's almost like a conscious decision over the last 12 months, just trying to look at what shape the market might be in and what's going to be required to continue doing what we're going to do. And that's going to be winning new customers and maintaining and retaining our existing ones.
Perfect. Bang on. Thank you, mate.
All right.
With your training in L&D, is that you've got a new L&D person you brought into the business? Are you still using third parties? Are you still using Jeremy for some of those?
We haven't no would be the short answer. We only from a leadership point of view. So sorry, I should have given Jeremy a shout out before when you asked that question. So Jeremy Snell is who we used pre having our own L&D function for our trainee people, and he's great. And we used him for 3 different academies, which was a group of 4 or 5 trainees in one go that we'd started across both offices. So he's kind of an external third party, runs through a training course which doesn't cost an arm and a leg, but he's really helpful. He's kind of good in terms of how he delivers it, how he supports people, the ethos and what he's trying to create, and what the skills that he gives people are good. So yeah, definitely recommend him. And he was a great help to us, albeit we don't use him much now because we bought it in-house.
No, good stuff. Any more questions, folks, before we wrap up?
Chris, I've got to ask the question. If I get a CV of someone with 6 months recruitment experience, I run 1,000,000 miles. Whereas it's interesting, you've hired a few of those. The perception obviously from me is that they didn't pass probation. What sort of success have you had, through that, or has it been a
lot?
Okay,
a lot.
Interesting.
Those are my best hires, because I think 9 times out of 10, obviously there clearly you get some not so good stories within that, but I think 9 times out of 10 for me, if you've gone into a company, I think loads of those really good people now we get lost because standard, they go in very first recruitment job, they know no different, they're brainwashed, this is the best place ever, we pay the best, we've got the best man, everything, etc. is the best. And then if they get in there and think, I don't actually like this, whether it be a management thing or environmental culture thing, then are those people that leave the industry and you've got all that good talent disappearing. So I think if you're one of those people that have gone in and are like, actually, if they've left of their own accord, if they've been fired or not passed probation, we've again still seen success in some of those, but this is obviously a slightly different question. But if someone's proactively like, actually, I do like the job, I do like my first feel of recruitment, but this environment isn't me, or the KPIs aren't being set, my manager's being set. Like for me, that's someone that's proactively making a conscious decision. They do like the industry, but they've just not found the right fit in terms of that. That's someone who's got a brain head on the shoulders, still likes the industry, has got a passion for it, and still wants to prove they can do it, still got some fire in their belly. That's someone I'd want to work with, and that's someone I'm confident if they've got that mindset. And the other positive is you're not having to teach that first, go through this painful, like this is how you dial a number, this is how you accept a rejection, all that type of baby step stuff has been done for you, and then you're just kind of picking it up, polishing it, motivating it, and watching it fly basically. And we've had loads of success from our top contract guy running 14 grand a week. We took after 3 months at Talent, never done a deal, hated recruitment, came to us with pretty much a broken lad at 22. He's now 26, running billing 550 grand last year. He's now running a contract team in London, gone right the way through. Like, he's one of many examples of people in exactly that sweet spot.
Well, if you can do last more than 3 months with Jamie Fraser, you're probably doing all right, aren't you?
Yeah.
I would, yeah. And in my little experience compared to you guys, one of the best guys I've recruited was Naz Bad, who came out of, I call it the Red Brick University at Kingston. He did 6 months with an IT recruiter in Reading, one of the 100 or whatever there are there. And he came to us at Principal People. He's now running that business, and he's 29, running 37 people, and absolutely flying, and took contract from 2% to 35% of the gross margin. So I love that 3 to 6 month to 9 month person. If they join the wrong company, which hasn't got the personal development plans and the culture, then they're great grabbing them then, because they haven't got into bad habits and
exactly
culture. Yeah. Well, folks, any last chance saloon, anything to wrap up? Chris, any final comments or anything that we didn't ask that you wanted to share?
I don't think so, no. If anyone wants to reach out or ask any questions, then I'm absolutely welcome. Just give us a shout. I'm fairly busy on LinkedIn, so happy to.
I know Simon and Chris, you should connect because of the Texas connection at some point. But thank you. I think from all of us, thank you very much today. Congratulations as well to you and your team. It's more than one person, and you've been able to build some energy with that team as well. And I've connected with some of your people that are doing great things. So well done. Wish you all the best for 2023, and hopefully see some of you soon on another Zoom. And Patrick and I are going to have a fireside very shortly, so it'd be good to watch that one as well. Thank you, folks.
Well done, Chris. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Well done, Chris. Amazing.
Thanks, mate.
Bye.